It is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026, 7 p.m. I will call the city council meeting to order. Clerk Hebert, please call roll.
Councilmember Huckabee.
Here.
Councilmember Alisco-Hare.
Here.
Councilmember Price. Here. President Jacob.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson is excused absence.
Item 3, your Pledge of Allegiance. I invite everybody to stand, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4, consent agenda. The consent agenda outlined below is hereby presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed items 4A through H.
Second. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, public hearings. Tonight we have none. Item 6, public comment for matters on the agenda. The city council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon: name, address, and contact information. Note for those following along on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand as the chat box is not monitored, and those on the call must remain muted unless recognized to speak. We don't have anybody in person signed up tonight, so this will be a first call for anyone on Zoom. Second call for anyone on Zoom wishing to provide public comment. Call for a third and final call. We will close out public comment. Item 7, petitions, requests, and communications. 7A is a presentation of the City of Fort Atkinson financial statements and supplemental information for the year ending December 31st, 2025. We have Andrea Jensen from Baker Tilly.
Thanks for your time this evening. Can you hear me okay?
A little muffled.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Am I able to share my screen?
Should be.
And are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So thanks for your time this evening. My name is Andrea Jansen, principal with Baker Tilly. Before we dig into the financial highlights, which is where we'll spend most of the time, I just wanted to make a few brief comments on the formal audit reports themselves. So starting with the independent auditor's report, which is at the top, at the front of the financial statements, we issue an adverse opinion on missing information for the Fort Atkinson Historical Society, and this is consistent with previous years. This is a separate legal entity, but it does meet the criteria for reporting as a component unit of the city. So because that separate entity is not audited, we're not able to pull in that information into the city's financial statements. And so this adverse opinion is to alert you to the fact that that information is missing. For all of the information that is presented, we're able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we're able to give, otherwise known as a clean opinion. So that is great news. The other formal audit report that we issue is the reporting and insights document. For those that are familiar with this report, it's largely made up of required communications. It's going to look pretty consistent to the prior year. A few items to highlight. Internal control matters are included on page 6. These are very common for governments with similar size staff as the city. They are items that are not necessarily required to be addressed, but they are required to be communicated to you, just so that you have an awareness of potential, higher risk areas. There's a link to our website on page 11 of the report that will take you to resources outside of the audit areas that we focus on, but they may be of interest to you. And then the back half of the report includes our contact information for the audit team members, adjustments that we made as part of our audit procedures, some information on the new accounting standards that are coming up, and then a look ahead to next year's audit. So if at any time during the year you have questions or concerns that arise, you are welcome to reach out to me or to any of our team members to talk those through. So now looking at the numbers in the 2025 financial highlight handout, we are going to start with the city's primary operating fund, the general fund, and we're going to talk about fund balance, which is in simplified terms, the equity left over when you have assets minus liabilities. And this chart is comparing current year in blue to prior year in black. At the top of the chart, we've got your total fund balance, just over 11.1 million at year end. And that is up just shy of $1 million from the previous year. Towards the bottom of the chart, we've got your non-spendable fund balance at about 1.4 million. That is made up of things like prepaid items, land held for resale, and advances to other funds. Moving up the chart, you've got assigned fund balance of about 1.3 million. The largest balances there relate to capital improvements and equipment replacement. So those are funds that you've set aside for specific purposes. And that leaves you with unassigned fund balance of about 8.4 million, which is not earmarked for any specific purpose. So we'll look at that a little closer on the next slide. But before we go there, just a few comments on the summarized income statement below the chart, starting with your final budget, which is your plan for the year. You had planned for a net loss of just under 100,000. Your actual results, like I mentioned previously, were a net income of just under $1 million. So very, very good year. If you want to see the details for what makes up some of those variances, you would find that starting on page 60 of the financial statements. A few notes on the revenue side. There were a number of areas that you did better than planned, with investment income being the largest variance on the positive side. And then on the expenditure side, there were savings across multiple categories, with general government being the largest of those. So this next slide, we are still talking about your general fund and still talking about fund balance. We're focused on that unassigned fund balance over time and then compared to your policy, which is as a percent of budgeted general fund expenditures. The percentage at the end of the year is 80.4%. That is up from the previous year and is above your policy range, which the top end of that is 30%. As we saw in the previous slide, your net income combined with that decrease in the non-spendable category are both factoring in here into that increase. So, it's always easier to be looking at when you're on the top side of your policy range rather than being under your policy range. So I think this really means that you have some flexibility in the year ahead as you look in your 2027 budget. As you're looking at your capital plans, you could consider some additional assignments of fund balance, or you could consider where you may want to decide to apply some of those funds. So not something that needs to be, dealt with immediately. Again, you just have some flexibility. So very, very healthy fund balance at year end. Next, we move to your general obligation debt. The chart is showing your state statutory debt limit, which is 5% of your equalized value, mapped out in the black line, and then your actual general obligation debt outstanding at the end of the year for each of the last 5 years is mapped out in the red line. So just under 29 million at the end of the year. down slightly from the previous year. You're within the state statutory limit at 37% and also within your policy limit as well. Below the chart, we've got a snapshot of the other types of debt that you have. So the general obligation debt is that first column that is split between the city and the utility funds. And then your utility funds also have an additional $12 million in revenue debt, which is not applied against your state statutory debt limit. And then the TIF District Number 9 fund also has a $3.5 million note anticipation note. Overall, no concerns with the information or the trends on this page. Next, we are taking a look at what you're spending on debt service, so the principal and interest in your governmental funds compared to non-capital expenditures. That ratio is 13.8% at the end of the year, and overall, over the last 5 years, this has been a pretty stable ratio, which is always, generally favorable. We also have comparative metrics for municipalities of your size mapped out in black, so you can see you are below those comparative metrics as well. So no concerns on this slide either. The last 3 pages here are focused on your utility funds, with the first being your water utility. As a reminder, this fund is regulated by the PSC of Wisconsin, so you've got your authorized rate of return listed at the top of the page, which hasn't changed since last year. Strong operating results again this year for the water utility with operating income of around 1.5 million. You've got unrestricted cash reserves of about 1.5 million at year end, which is just over 5 months of operations if you weren't to collect any more revenue, which I'm not suggesting you would do, but that's what that ratio is showing you. And then with utility funds, you have heavy investments in your infrastructure. And so you can see from this bar, about 90% of your infrastructure is equity funded versus only 10% debt funded. So no concerns there. Next up is your sewer utility. The operating margin here is smaller than the water utility, but fairly consistent over the last few years with about 360,000 in operating income this year. Your unrestricted cash reserves, very healthy, about $4.3 million at year end. And you can see the investment in capital tells a little bit different story in this fund with equity funding 51% of your sewer plant and 49% debt funded. This is to be expected with the significant investments that the city has made in its sewer utility over the last couple of years. So as that debt gets paid down, the equity percentage will continue to increase over time. And then lastly, we have your stormwater utility, about $177,000 operating income this year. And this fund has been a little less stable over the last 5 years. You can see from the chart, I think the last 2 years are kind of trending, appears to be getting back on track operationally and just a little bit more stable. So that's good news. You will want to give consideration to your cash reserves. There were no unrestricted cash reserves at the end of 2025. That's not an immediate reason to panic, but just something that you'll want to consider keeping an eye on, especially as you're talking through your capital plans in the next few years, and just making sure that you have a plan for funding any new assets. So your investment in capital for this fund, 70% equity funded and 30% debt funded. So that all looks fine. That relates to about $3.2 million of debt to that fund. So that is all that I had for planned comments. Before I open it up for questions from the group, I just want to give a shout out to Michelle and the city staff for all their assistance with the audit. It is a heavy lift to get ready for us, and it is very close to year end, tax collections, all the things. So certainly appreciate the effort that goes into the preparation and then just the assistance throughout the process. Any questions from the group?
Excuse me. Thank you, Andrea. So what I'm hearing is a pretty solid financial position, particularly when we look at the first graphs that we saw for the general fund, unassigned fund balance, debt capacity, debt service, water and sewer utilities. With respect to the stormwater utility, that in your professional opinion, where is a good level of the year-end balance months on hand for unrestricted reserves?
The cash reserves, I mean, it sort of depends on, your level of comfort. There's not really a right answer. I would say probably at a minimum, I would say maybe 4 months, just so you have kind of 1/4 of operations as a reserve. But you do, you're not in a position where debt is an issue. So if you need to borrow for this fund, you certainly could. And as I mentioned, operationally in 2024 and 2025, pretty solid performance. So it's not like you're not generating income. It's just, I think you've had some maybe heavier cash funded capital investments in the last couple of years. So that's pulling down those cash reserves. Plus you have the debt service to pay for some of the previous debt issues that kind of pulls away from that operating income as well.
Right. Thanks for that insight.
Yep.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you very much, Andrea. It's glad to know that our city is being very well managed by our staff, and this is just one more step to prove it every year to our citizens that we're doing a very good job and being good stewards of our money. So
Thanks so much.
thank you. All right. Moving on to item 8, resolutions and ordinances. Tonight we have the second reading of an ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment for the property located at 550 McMillan Street. The parcel number is listed in the packet from institutional to multifamily residential 30. Director Drager.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, as you noted, this is a proposed zoning map amendment. There's 2 existing parcels by the Ford Healthcare Facility. It's their previous employee parking and overflow parking to the northeast of the hospital. They're proposing to rezone the property from institutional to multifamily residential to facilitate future development for a multifamily development of 24 unit buildings, 4 of those to be specific, at least for our current plans. We have not gotten the formal site plan review forms for that stuff. So as I said, this is strictly just for the zoning portion of that, but it would facilitate that future development. I will note that the current institutional zoning that is in place at the moment does allow for the proposed density of development that is being proposed, just in a different form. It'd be a community living type or a senior living in that institutional, but it would be able to sustain or allow for that same size. I will also point out there was a public hearing on April 28th. Did have active participation from the neighboring residents. There was some concerns regarding traffic circulation, stormwater management, and pedestrian connectivity. I believe those concerns were addressed during a neighborhood meeting on May 6th that was hosted by the applicant. There was also by city staff and city staff's request, the developer did employ a traffic study to address the concerns over traffic circulation in the area. The study did conclude that even at the highest density allowed in the MRH 30, the existing transportation infrastructure is capable of handling that. And then also on May 12th, the Plan Commission did recommend the City Council approve the zoning map amendment, and City Council did hold a first reading on May 19th. the city's comprehensive plan's future land use. Most shows the two parcels to be a planned mixed use. Overall, the zoning map amendment isn't aligned with adopted city plans. There is no direct financial impact to the city with this proposed zoning map amendment, but it would facilitate the future development of the site. And that's to finalize, city staff does recommend the city council perform the second reading of this ordinance and direct the city manager to prepare the ordinance for a third and final reading at the meeting on June 16th. Now, welcome any questions you may have.
So far been one of our more talked about zoning changes. Nothing too big has come up in the last week or two, I assume.
I haven't heard anything new in the last couple weeks or so. Like I said, that neighborhood meeting was, I think, helpful for the neighborhood as a whole to really address a lot of those concerns. It was able to be discussed there that the site plan review, those other future applications will really address those site-specific things. And then that traffic study did really help out with the concerns over the traffic itself.
Yeah, the communication has been excellent from the developers and.
They've been pleasant to work with for sure.
Mhm, mhm.
With respect to the traffic concerns, and you noted even at the highest density level that it's still a reasonable level of traffic that would be anticipated through there.
Yes.
But refresh my memory of the exact, like the proposal is not to max out the density level there.
Correct. Yes. So the proposal is for much less than the 50 units per acre that it would be permitted for that site.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Once again, just be specific, we have not seen the exact site plan, but that's the proposal that we have seen for the concept plan and things like that.
I move to perform the second reading of the ordinance and direct the city manager to prepare the ordinance for a third and final reading for the meeting on June 16th, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, reports of officers, boards, and committees. 9A is city manager's report. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. As most of you probably know, we are well into our special event season here in the city. The Memorial Day Parade was on the 25th of May. Our farmers market is downtown on Saturday mornings through October. Our Parks and Recreation Department painted the sky with kites on May 30th, which was also Intersectional Peony Day at the museum and a car show at Jones Park. Base had their annual Wings and Wheels event on May 31st at the airport. I heard that the pancakes were delicious. I will go ahead and say I cooked about 900 of them or so. And over the next couple of weeks, the charity concerts will start up at Berry Park. The farmers market will continue. The cheese crawl will take place on the 13th of June, and General's Baseball Fest is the following weekend, June 18th through the 21st. So lots of opportunities to participate in our community here. The museum is planning for its annual Dairy Day at the museum, scheduled for Saturday, June 13th from 11 to 2. As usual, the museum will host all 7 milking breeds of cows with grilled cheese sandwiches and 8 flavors of floats available for sale. The event is free and open to the public. Back in May, about 7 of us representing multiple departments participated in the City Build Day for Habitat for Humanity at the site along McMillan Street. We cleaned windows, installed screens, raked and graded the yard, and planted grass. We're pleased to continue to support Habitat in Fort Atkinson and welcome 2 new property owners to the property later this month. The Habitat for Humanity Fort Atkinson Critical Repair Program is live and ready for applications. If you know anyone who may be interested, please pass along the link from our website. It's on our website as well as Habitat's website for the applications for that. And we did talk about that at our affordable housing workshop earlier this evening. There's $500,000 in that fund to support critical home repairs for owner-occupied dwellings here in the city. That Affordable Housing Fund workshop this evening, Kristen Fish-Peterson of Redevelopment Resources presented information on potential city affordable housing funds, fund policies and programs. So after synthesizing the feedback that she received tonight, she'll be returning to City Council with draft programs and policies. Thrive ED President Deb Reinbold and I appeared on Dr. Abbott's One Fort Report podcast this week to discuss housing and economic development in Fort Atkinson. We certainly have a lot to be excited about here in Fort Atkinson, so check that out if you have time. And then finally, I'm thrilled to announce that after the elementary and middle school pool visits this week, the Aquatic Center will open for the season on June 5th. And I haven't decided if I'm going to be there on June 5th or June 6th or both. So I might just be there all weekend with my kiddos. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 10, unfinished business. We have none tonight. Item 11, new business. 11A is presentation, review, and possible action relating to a commercial composting agreement between the City of Fort Atkinson and Green Box Compost. We have Public Works Superintendent Williamson and Ben Stranger from Green Box Compost.
Yes, thank you. So the gentleman standing next to me is Ben Stanger. He's the founder of Green Box Composting, and he'll have a short presentation for you guys after I finish kind of summarizing what I've put together in the memo and in the agreement that you have in the packet. So the city's Department of Public Works has operated a yard waste composting facility known as the compost site for over 30 years. This site consists of resident drop-off areas for yard and garden waste, brush under 6 inches in diameter, appliances, and e-waste. The Department of Natural Resources issues a permit to us every year to operate this facility, and these items being dropped off fall within those parameters. This is not only for the city of Fort Atkinson, but it also is for the town of Koshkonong. Before 2015, right around 2015, the city staffed and operated this site on Wednesdays after 3 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 to 3. The remaining days of the week were not open to the public, but were staffed actively turning and managing the accumulated compost materials and brush. Staff rented screens to process and finish the compost and stockpile this material for sale to the public at a later date. All of the accumulated brush at that time or prior to that time was burned over the winter months and took many days of constant 24-hour monitoring by staff while processing that burn. Several operational changes have been made over the last several years to reduce site staffing requirements and reallocate those funds for brush grinding. In that same time frame, the Director of Public Works and current city manager at that time received a letter from the DNR indicating that burning of this pile is only permitted through the DNR by permit and is kind of within the parameters of how close it is to residential neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, and the such. And at that time, both of those individuals determined that grinding this material to process it was a more environmentally friendly way to process the material down. As a result, city staff also began opening the site 6 days a week to increase public's access to this site. Unstaffed, so we still staff it Wednesdays after 3 p.m. and Saturdays all day, but the rest of the remaining days are unstaffed. We still have staff that need to go down and manage and maintain and push the site up and make sure that there's room for everyone to get their materials in. And as a result, the volume of materials on this site and the additional hours has increased, and the city's financial obligations for managing the site and grinding materials has also grown. In the spring of 2024, staff reached out to Ben Stanger of Green Box Compost in Sun Prairie. I think it was a mutual contact. He reached out to the city. We reached out back and had a nice conversation. We discussed the possibility of a public-private partnership between his organization and the city. This partnership would reduce operational costs to the city, decrease landfill contributions, provide the city with future revenue source, and offer Green Box Compost an opportunity to serve a larger geographic area by composting commercial and residential food waste. Green Box Compost offers residents, schools, and commercial businesses the opportunity to compost food waste rather than dispose of it in landfills. This partnership offers the city of Fort Atkinson an opportunity to lead the way in landfill waste reduction into the future while reallocating staff time to focus on more high priority functions. So I'll let Ben take it from here. He's got a little short presentation for you on what his organization does, and then I'll finalize the presentation.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Ben Stanger. I'm the founder and CEO of Greenbox Compost. Just a little bit. Yes, you can see here myself and a few of other of our employees at various events. A quick overview, we do food scrap collection. Our main service is collecting food scraps from homes and businesses throughout Dane and all the way out to Milwaukee counties. We work right now with about 1,200 residences and 50 or so businesses. Actually, maybe we can go to the next slide. This might be more apparent there. There we go. Um, we uh, we do this with a team of 12 currently. We collect on a weekly basis for commercial members and every other week basis for our residential members. We are currently diverting about 55,000 pounds of food scraps per week. Um, and we are, actually, if you go to the next slide here, we are composting some of that in that you can see in the top right corner there, our in-vessel system in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, just northeast of Madison. And then we work with a few other commercial composters around the southern part of the state. Um, sure, thank you. Um, our team represents the largest team focused on food scrap collection and diversion and composting in the state. That's admittedly right now a fairly low bar, but it's a new industry. We've only been in business for actually just over 4 years, and we've grown very rapidly in that space. So um, 4 years ago it was just me, and it's a lot better now. And we are excited to kind of use this potential partnership to grow our impact further into this area and even further east. Uh, our current partnerships, we currently have three of them. One is with a small village of Shorewood Hills. One is with the village of Oregon, south of Madison, and one is with the city of Sun Prairie, where we are located. The Shorewood Hills is a drop-off program. That's something that's interesting because that's, I think, the first way we would grow our collection footprint here, with, working with you all. The Village of Oregon is a subsidized residential collection program, so uh, like front porch collection of about 100 members in the Village of Oregon. And that is a budget funded program through them. And the city of Sun Prairie, we have a USDA grant funded program for 150 residential subsidized collection service memberships, composting for their city events, and composting for Sun Prairie schools, as well as giving compost back out to their community members. Um, and then just to kind of give an overview of who would be running the Fort Atkinson, like our partnership site, it'd be myself, the vice president of Wisconsin Composting Council, newly formed. We're in our second year, and the CEO of Greenbox Compost. I've got about um, I don't know, 8 years in this business, which is for this food scrap collection composting, actually a fairly long amount of time in the Midwest. But Alex Thomas is, I would say, one of the most respected food scrap composting professionals within the state. You can see here his resume is pretty substantial in this field, and he teaches courses on this sort of composting. So he's the one who'd be hands-on directly doing the composting operation in this site. Um, if you want to go to the next slide, um, the basic outline of the program is that we would take the composting off of the city's hands. We would compost all of the yard waste there, mixed in with food scraps that we are collecting to make a higher quality product that composts more quickly, and be just more hands-on with the process. We can afford to do this because we'll sell the finished product, and we collect full revenue on the front end from our collection services. So we can afford to put in the time and effort and money into creating a really a world-class composting site for food scraps and for yard waste that you're already collecting. Part of that program would also distribute 500 yards of compost back to the city for use in whatever projects that you all think is worthwhile. Um, and I mean, the goal hopefully is a win-win where we save you money on operational costs, give you a little bit of compost back, and then we are able to kind of continue our mission of diverting food scraps from the landfill, and creating really high quality compost to put back out to the community. And then from there, oh, sorry. Also, collection services This won't happen immediately, but rolling out commercial collection services for restaurants and other food, processing. I know there's a lot of food processing in this area, as well as, we work with schools, apartment buildings, things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities here to divert food scraps from the landfill, as well as, again, to compost the yard waste you are already collecting. Um, we will also hopefully, oh, sorry, just really quickly back there, be working on rolling out residential drop-off sites, kind of, in tandem with kind of what works for you on what you think is the best fit. And then, sorry, I'm done there. And then there are some future opportunities too. We do our own e-waste collection currently in our major footprint areas, and we'd hope to kind of roll that out or work in tandem with you down the line on that as well. I think eventually, once we get better established here, working on residential curbside collection of food scraps would be a really great next step. I think after we kind of see some success with the drop-off program. One of the things that we're really passionate about at Greenbox is compost education, both people touring sites so they kind of get a better understanding of what composting is and kind of like why it's important, but also like getting into schools and getting schools out to the site, just like starting early with that kind of connection to waste and what is waste and why is it important to kind of interact with it in this way. Um, Again, Alex and I are deeply involved in Wisconsin Composting Council, and that's going to be an important vehicle for this, working with the DNR as these kind of new regulations around food waste. They have a goal of 50% reduction of food waste to landfills by 2030 between all of us here. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is an important thing that they are pushing to do, and getting Fort Atkinson on board early is going to, I think, show dividends down the line. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to take questions. Maybe you want to finish up first?
Yeah, I'll finish up.
Okay.
If there's any questions, we'll answer them the best we can. So on the financial side of things, obviously the proposed agreement here between the city and Greenbox is included for your review, but the initial term of the agreement is for 3 years. It offers the community 500 cubic yards of completed Class A compost for resident and department use, which has a realized value to the city somewhere between $40 and $60 a cubic yard, which again is going to end up between $20,000 and $30,000 a year. The establishment of Greenbox's operations will take a few years to establish, and it is pretty capital intensive. As such, there's no monetary rent required as part of the initial agreement. If the agreement is determined to be mutually beneficial, of course, during the initial term, staff and Greenbox representatives will have the opportunity to renegotiate a subsequent agreement, which may include monetary rent or other benefits such as drop-off bins and the like. The proposed agreement presents operational savings to the city due to reduced staffing requirements to manage and maintain the existing site without reduced service to the community. The exhibit below, which is a small snippet out of our operations for the last 3 years, shows our existing staffing hours and wages for those hours staffed annually for just to manage and run the compost site. This does not, however, include our e-waste and appliance superstar John. That's not in this. So this is just the full-time staffing of that site, just to send full-time staff over there and manage it. Where am I? Oh, staff anticipates significant savings with reduction in service hours required to manage and maintain the compost facility. Such person hours would be reallocated for other operational matters such as roadways, storm, sanitary sewer collection systems, and infrastructure improvements. The additional benefit to the community is the immediate reduction of heavy equipment needs at the compost facility, allowing the city's equipment to be better utilized within the right-of-way. So in a nutshell, the staff does recommend the city council approve the 3-year initial commercial composting agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and Greenbox Compost, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. And hopefully we can answer any questions for you.
Lots of them. No. Okay, so just to recap, you'd put the machine that we saw in one of the slides, the blue composting.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so what exactly will be out at the compost site?
To begin with, just a skid loader. That's all we need actually to get
Okay.
started. Down the line, as hopefully the program grows, we'll add in some more intensive equipment, a larger bucket loader and a windrow turner which is a big machine that moves over the top of the piles and kind of turns them in place.
Okay.
They're both just labor saving, equipment, obviously, but they are not quite as capital intensive as what you saw there, which was fit to be indoors for a very specific circumstance that we don't have here.
Yeah, this would be an open air,
Mhm.
this would be open air windrows, composting.
Okay.
What we do now essentially, but more actively maintained, so more actively turned and maintained.
And I have lots of composting friends and myself included, but meat and proteins and things like that in our backyard composting doesn't happen. This will be all food waste.
Yes, it will. And the reason you don't want to do, meat and food waste in your backyard, like you could do it, but you'd have to, and there might be ordinances against it, I guess. Without ordinances, you could do it. If you turned it really frequently, you had a large enough pile that stayed warm and kind of killed off the pathogens and dissuaded pests. The advantage we have at a large scale composting site like this is that we're turning it almost every day at the beginning when you can discern meat from anything else.
Okay.
And it's getting really hot very quickly. And, both of those things together are keeping pests away from the pile that might otherwise, get into your backyard pile.
Okay, so you'd have a presence there full time.
Yeah,
Okay,
daily. Yeah.
okay. Wonderful.
We wouldn't be limiting access for people to be dropping off brush or anything like that still. It would still be the normal operating hours that everybody has available to them now.
Yeah, correct. We're not planning on altering the operational hours at all. And the site will be maintained open to the public to come and drop off their yard waste and grass clippings and whatnot, and also brush. And we will still maintain our e-waste collection and appliances there on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So those operations will be still on site. His operations will also operate on site. They'll just be in a segregated area so we don't mix the public in with, equipment turning piles and whatnot.
And then will the food scrap be available for residents to drop off right away, or is that going to be part of the next step?
Yeah, so initially we'll do an at-site drop off, so we'll allow with the proper notice to the public of what can be dropped off, what's appropriate to drop off.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah, we'll
like,
notify them, and we'll work with Greenbox to make sure that we put that information out there for the public so that we don't get things that can't be composted, but this isn't it's not a dump site, it is a compost facility. So in order to maintain this as a compost facility, one of the things required is very active maintenance to keep the temperatures up. If we have various random plastics and garbage, that doesn't really work to our advantage. But right now it'll be at site. I think in the future, we've talked about local drop-off locations around the community where they could pick the material up and take it down and then compost.
I will also note that there are bins that are designed for this type of thing that are, locked and or, secure in a way. So it would not be, people coming by and just dropping off a bucket of this type of material in a pile and then driving off, right? So it is very organized and planned out, and we do have a couple more steps to take internally to determine what that's going to look like and where it's going to be.
And I would say, just to add really quickly, we have experience with setting up those sorts of drop-off programs that are well regulated. So I think it'll be just the same setting up here.
I'm familiar with the Dane County Farmers Market drop off on Wednesdays. So
Yes.
that's where I had to go wait, is this the same green box? And then once you pulled up the slides, I was like, oh, it is. So that's nice to know. So it's a familiar name.
That's great. Thank you.
Are there other communities that you are looking to expand into?
Well, really as many as we can, but this one's right next door, and it really, once we kind of peeled back the layers, this seemed like the very obvious one. But I mean, without getting too detailed, we'd like to go further east of Milwaukee and further north to, all the way up to Green Bay. That kind of triangle was in the near future, hopefully.
I think you had mentioned that you sell the finished product. Like, how is that made available? How does someone acquire some of the finished product?
Just on our website. Right now, because of the the nuance because of where we're composting currently. Not a lot of that it's all kind of earmarked for other people, but with this expansion, we'll hopefully have a lot more product available to sell to the public.
And then do you sell it by the bag, or does somebody fill up a truck full, or how does somebody get that?
I'd say currently no plans for bagging, but either bulk delivery or, bulk, not self-serve, but we'll fill up like the back of a truck.
The 500 cubic yards that are included in the contract, is that standard for you, or is that based on like what we anticipate the city would need for our own purposes?
Our initial usage, even with the public coming in to take compost, we pile up our current compost, which we do have a stockpile of. We pile that up at the compost site for the residents to come and take. We go through about 110 to 120 yards of compost a year, maybe slightly more than that, but we'll offer that same material up, only it'll be a higher quality Class A compost, which is a better growing material, it's better for the soil. So, but we'll offer that, and then we use the compost, we mix it in with topsoil when we do terrace restoration. So we'll continue that process too. So in our initial discussions, we thought 500 yards was a good starting point, and I think it's more than adequate for what we use it for.
And this is kind of a unique situation. So this is because we have this compost site is kind of what attracted Greenbox to the city and the city to Greenbox. So this is, we did come up with this contract ourselves and negotiate quite a bit on that before we brought it to the council.
Ben, I imagine that your Greenbox associates are of like mind, like you, and there's probably two things here, right? You see a business opportunity, but also an opportunity to do some environmentally friendly things. Where would you put yourself in that scale?
I would say I'm more on the environmental side. This is not, well, not to cry poverty or anything, but it's not making me rich. But I'm active also. So, I'd say skewing towards environmental.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it is an interesting proposal, and I wish you well if we approve it.
And to clarify, like it'll be a very active site, so there won't be any expected smells from
No.
any additional food waste or anything like that, right?
No, we currently operate 100 feet from a residential house where we are, and this is far further from that, and we've gotten no complaints from that site, so I anticipate none here.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this is a very exciting opportunity for the city, not only for our financial savings on our side, but then just like you said, the added benefit for everybody and hopefully getting this out of landfills. I work in kind of that industry where I do get into landfills quite often, and the amount of food waste you see dumped in them is disturbing.
It's scary. Yeah.
I move to approve the commercial composting agreement between the city of Fort Atkinson and Greenbox Compost and authorize the city manager to execute.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, 11 B, review and possible action relating to a certified survey map for the property located at 217 Jefferson Street, CSM 2025-08. Director Drager.
Yes, thank you. So this CSM before you is a proposal from the Klosny family and their neighbor to the south, the Ciccarellis. What was found at 217 Jefferson Street by Klosny's was that the fence that was on their property, that they thought was on their property, was indeed not. And then also the existing setbacks were encroaching on the neighbors. And this is a solution that was both neighbors came up with to resolve that situation. There was some small mapping errors in there that you'll see in the Plan Commission memo. But as you can see with that CSM, it is resolving it. The SR7 zoning that is currently in place there does call for a 7-foot setback, side setback. As you can see in the memo, the 6.72 is actually just a little bit underneath that, but there's also an 8.6 foot setback, and staff feels that it is meeting the intent of the zoning ordinance. and does recommend the city council approve the CSM. Plan Commission did look at this and did recommend the city council approval and with the conditions included in the Plan Commission memo. I welcome any questions you may have. Pretty straightforward one. Does resolve some setback issues, and it was a long while coming for the survey maps to come in, but overall, I think both residents are happy with the solution.
I move to approve the certified survey map for the property located at 217 Jefferson Street, subject to the changes identified in the Plan Commission memo and any other changes from the city council.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just love that the residents came up with it and we're from the Plan Commission, we're just very cognizant of each other and wanted the best for each other. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great solution, and staff was not aware of the situation until it was brought forward to us.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11C, review and possible action relating to an alcohol beverage license application for DLM Group LLC for use at 1245 Whitewater Avenue for a Class B intoxicating liquor and Class B fermented malt beverage license contingent upon background checks and payment of license fees. Clerk Ebert.
Thank you. So just to refresh our council, I know we have a new council member. So alcohol licensing is an annual license that's issued with approval of the city council and issued by the clerk. Annual alcohol licensing runs July 1st through June 30th of every year. Staff does start the renewal process typically in March to allow for applications to be submitted in April. Allows us time to review, perform any necessary checks that we have. So the consent agenda tonight did include the renewal alcohol license applications and then the cigarette license applications. However, this is a new license application, so that's why it's a separate agenda item tonight. So again, the license committee met on May 26th and did review this application. So as we have many some quotas on certain licenses, a quota exists for a Class B intoxicating liquor. So real quick history on some of our licenses. There's a Class A license and a Class B. Class A is where you consume the alcohol away from the premise. Class B, where you consume it on site. Kind of look at A as away and B as bar. So when you have Class A, you have intoxicating liquor license and fermented malt. Class B, intoxicating liquor and Class B, fermented malt. And then there's also combinations that you can get of some of these licenses. Fees are set by state statute. We charge the max amount of fees for the annual licenses. And then the quotas exist for the Class A intoxicating liquor, the Class B fermented malt, the Class B intoxicating liquor, and then we have reserve Class B intoxicating liquor, which are allowances when we're over exceeding a certain population from when the Department of Administration put some caps on a few years ago. So a lot of back information here, but I just want to kind of provide a little bit of information for the agenda item. So in this situation, McGrath Catering has a Class B intoxicating liquor and Class B for malt beverage license used at 1245 Whitewater Avenue. Now, as we are at quota for these licenses, we don't have one available for someone to apply. But in this situation, DLM Group is taking over this property, and McGrath is able to surrender their license contingent upon the approval for it to be issued to DLM. If it's not approved for DLM, the license would stay in the property of McGrath, which they would use at this location.
We do have that one reserve. We're not at quota for the reserves.
Okay, sorry. So, okay, so in the memo, it talks about the reserve Class B intoxicating liquor. There's a quota of 5, there's one available. The reserve licenses come as a one-time fee of $10,000. So that is available. However, in this situation, as they are looking at a property that has a license, that business is able to surrender contingent on the approval. If this would be a new business coming into the community looking for such license, we do have that one available at the reserve at the $10,000 one-time fee. And then the annual renewal would just be the intoxicating liquor would be $500 and the fermented malt would be $100. So in this case, DLM Group did submit the appropriate application, which alcohol license application, the individual questionnaires for those that are associated with the business, and then appointment of the agent. The agent is responsible for the day-to-day operations, scheduling, ordering, staffing, pretty much the person kind of on site managing. Again, for use of the 1245 Whitewater Avenue, all documentation was submitted. They did confirm federal ID number, seller's permit number. We had the letter from McGrath stating that they would surrender their license contingent upon approval. Background checks were performed. I know that was in our motion because at the time of the packet, I did not receive those back. I did receive those back today and they were all approved from the police department with no concerns. So at this time, I'm happy to answer questions. The motion would be to approve the alcohol license application, Class B intoxicating liquor, Class B fermented malt beverage license for DLM Group LLC, doing business as Jenny's Entertainment and Events for use of 1245. Licensing period July 1st, 26 through June 30, 27, contingent upon payment of licensing fees. I will note the 1245 Whitewater location. They're anticipating a soft opening in June. Obviously, this license would not take place until July, but I do know they are excited to bring back a menu and some roller skating. And I had another thought, I don't remember what it was. Payment of licensing fees is something that we require within our ordinance that makes sure that if they have any outstanding permits or any utility that's delinquent, they have to pay all of those plus a license fee in order to get their license. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
I don't think you left any on the table.
Yeah, well,
I move to approve an alcohol beverage license application for DLM Group LLC for use at 1245 Whitewater Avenue for a Class B intoxicating liquor and Class B fermented malt beverage license contingent upon, well, not the
Payment.
background checks anymore, but payment of the license fees.
great.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 11D, review and possible action on a water utility simplified rate case application to the Public Service Commission. Director Navin.
Good evening. Now it's gonna, I think I bumped it.
Battery dying or is it okay?
It's all right for now.
Okay.
Let me know if you can't hear me in a little bit here. All right. In November of 2023, the council heard a report from Trilogy Incorporated tasked with a review of the city's 3 utility rate structures under the expected future operations and capital expenses. That report's attached for reference. In this report, the water utility rates were recommended for annual review for potential increases through 2026. The Public Service Commission regulates rate increases and requires assessment of the previous year's accounting to ensure a rate of return that qualifies the utility for a simple rate increase. In 2025, year-end financials indicate the utility is eligible for a simple rate increase through the PSC in 2026. This rate increase was included in the 2026 budget and discussed during the 2026 budget process. This process does require a public notice, which will be posted on June 18th of this month. And in the Daily Union, following the notice, the increase can be considered by the PSC with a proposed implementation date of October 1 of 2026. The increase will apply to all water utility rates regardless of the meter size. The rate increase is a twofold impact. First, taking advantage of these simple increases staves off the need for significant jumps in rates down the road. The last rate case was in 2024. Before that was in 2022. Before the 2022 increase was the 2020 rate increase that funded a dedicated annual water main replacement program at 1% of the city's water main per year. The simple rate increase will adjust the increased costs in that program as well as operating expenses for the utility. After the simplified rate case, the City of Fort Atkinson Water Utility will be due for a conventional rate case in 2028. The conventional rate case includes an audit by the PSC, public notice and input, a technical analysis, and a public hearing if needed. And once that's complete, the PSC reviews the full record and issues their final order on the sets that are allowed the rates. And you'll see in the attached document, the water rates dashboard shows the city of Fort Atkinson water utility rates compared to other utilities within 25 miles of the city as rates stand today, and then a copy of what it would look like with that 3% increase. And you can find that dashboard with following the link to play around with it if you have further interest in what some of those pieces look like. If approved, the water utility rates will increase 3% for all customers. As you'll see in the memo here, it breaks down some of those different increases based on the different base rates and charges. At the end of the day, the average homeowner will, with a usage of 13 on their bill, will see a bi-monthly increase of $2.51. Staff recommends the city council approve the simplified rate case application to the PSC for an increase in the water utility rates of 3%. And I just wanted, yeah, as noted in the memo as well, keeping up on these 3% simplified rate cases or smaller ones like this avoids those sticker shocks if we, when they're not done for years on end, and all of a sudden you see in the newspaper the water utilities that are doing 20+% increases because they were just deferred over the years. So it's good to keep on top of these little ones through this process.
I know the table didn't turn out quite as we intended in the memo, so thank you to Michelle for providing copies for the council. We can certainly scan this in and attach this to the documentation for the meeting on the website as well.
For simplified rate cases, does the PSC have, I imagine they have a little bit less rigorous review of the case. Is it fairly standard? They look over the numbers at a very high level and approve, or are there any times where a simplified rate case gets reduced from what you're asked for?
Not to my knowledge, right? It definitely is what it says, a simplified rate. I go online, punch in a handful of numbers that it asks, 20-minute process, punch in the numbers of our budget and our financials, and then it has its formula based on our previous information and spits out what we're eligible for. And again, that's just what we're eligible for. This is just approving that okay to formally apply, which is done after this part.
I move to approve the water utility simplified rate case application to the Public Service Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12, miscellaneous, we have none tonight. Item 13, public comment for matters not on the agenda. The city council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following for the record when called upon. Name, address, and subject matter, contact information. No action will be taken on any public comment. Those of you on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand as we don't monitor the chat box, and you must remain muted unless recognized to speak. We don't have anyone in person tonight, so this will be a first call for anyone on Zoom. Second call for anyone on Zoom wishing for public comment. Close out public comment. Item 14, claims, appropriations, and contract payments. 14A is review and possible action up to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorized payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Huckabee,
Aye.
Councilmember Lesko Hair,
Aye.
Councilmember Price,
Aye.
President Jacob.
Aye. Motion carries. 15, adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.